Unfollow Me. Chapter 1. Café Calais was a locally owned French bistro in the heart of my sleepy town. It was the kind of place that gave me a warm sense of comfort at the very thought of it. From the moment I stepped inside, I was swaddled in the savory scent of fresh buttered bread and finely chopped garlic. There, nestled at my favorite table, I would enjoy the well-choreographed cadence of the meal while spending quality time with friends or delving into business with colleagues. However, tonight there would be no casual conversation, no effortless sense of calm. Instead, as I sipped my glass of Merlot, I sat facing Todd. His eyes were wild, his face beet red, and the volume of his voice was increasing. My eyes darted around as he slammed his fist on the table. "Are you listening to me?" "Yes," I nodded. "Just please keep your voice down." As he continued to rant, I drained my glass of wine and signaled to Brandy, my favorite waitress who sometimes worked behind the bar, that I wanted another. Todd's eyebrows were knitted together. Beads of sweat were forming on his upper lip. He was coming unglued. As Brandy placed another glass of wine in front of me, Todd continued. "I would have thought you'd try harder to salvage things between us when I ended it. I guess I was wrong. You're too selfish to think about anyone but yourself. It's pathetic." "Todd, like your email said—" "I don't want to hear it. You're self-absorbed, self-righteous, and so fucking spoiled. You have some major issues to work on, but you wouldn't do the work, would you? Instead, you're sleeping with a married man." Guests were looking over at us, whispering as Todd continued to berate me and speed through all the reasons I was wrong, how ungrateful I was, and how he was sure that I'd soon run off and sleep with yet another guy. Even though the things he was saying about me were completely false, bizarre even, I couldn't defend myself. I knew if I left, it would heighten his anger. It would take one word from me to escalate this into a nasty scene. It was clear that my silence was agitating him. He was getting out of control, saying anything he could to elicit a reaction. The only time he paused was when Brandy returned to the table with our entrees. She looked at me sympathetically, and I thanked her, trying to force a smile despite being mortified. The rest of the dinner was the same. Todd continued his tirade while I dug into my filet au poivre, topped with crab meat. I couldn't even enjoy this delicious dish I usually loved because I couldn't stop focusing on my racing heart and wondering how I was going to get out of this situation. Todd was trying desperately to humiliate me, so I clenched my fork and knife and remained quiet. On the outside, I was cool and collected, but on the inside I was dizzy from the disorienting Jekyll and Hyde behavior. After what seemed like hours, Todd snatched the bill. I had planned on paying for dinner, but made no effort after his behavior. While we waited for Brandy to run his credit card, I considered going to the bathroom to covertly find another way home. But it was Todd, and I was becoming numb to the chaos. I just wanted the hell out of there. So I clutched my purse tightly against my body as we walked to his truck. I yanked the door open and climbed into the passenger seat before pulling the door shut. Todd got in and slammed the door so hard the truck rocked. As the engine rumbled to life, Todd paused his tirade for a moment. I stared out the window, trying to remain calm enough to get to my house, run inside, and lock the door. Just a few minutes longer. Finally, we rolled up to the stop sign at the end of Main Street. But instead of making a right toward my house, Todd turned left. My face felt hot and my stomach clenched. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying not to sound panicked. "I'm not finished with you yet," he replied flatly. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled as though tiny insects were nibbling. "Take me home. Are you kidding me? I'm not taking you home." I couldn't breathe. I could feel the food I ate threatening to come up. My throat was closing. I insisted that he pull over and let me out. I knew I needed to remain calm to avoid triggering him further, so I was careful not to raise my voice over his. I clenched my fists, digging my nails into my palms. My intuition was screaming, begging me to get out of the truck. I chewed the inside of my cheeks as trees sped by in big, booming bursts. I thought about the white cross, the one that sits on the side of the road not far from where I grew up. It marks the spot where a young woman had jumped out of her kidnapper's vehicle and died as a result. I remembered when the news broke and how I wondered what those final moments must have been like for her. How desperate would someone have to be to jump out of a moving vehicle? Now I knew. Terrified, my eyes fixed on the door handle as I imagined flinging it open and rolling onto the pavement. Time was running out, but I couldn't make myself pull the handle. We were off the main road, winding through the city streets toward his house, a place I absolutely did not want to go for fear of never making it out alive. Before this moment, I hadn't considered the possibility that Todd was a violent man. But now? Todd's anger reached a fever pitch. He was yelling, oscillating between disparaging me personally and acting as though I was every female that had ever wronged him. He was hitting the steering wheel, droplets of spit flying from his mouth as he cussed. I'd never seen anyone this angry. After what felt like an eternity, we arrived at his driveway. The porch light illuminated the inside of the truck as he cut the engine and looked over at me. An eerie calm settled over him as he drew a breath and said, "The world would be a better place if you just weren't in it." With those words, my adrenaline spiked so explosively that I became dizzy with fear. I leapt out of the vehicle and ran toward the road, wobbling in my brand-new shoes that had begun cutting into the backs of my heels. I was too far to run home. I don't know where to go. I stopped at the end of the driveway, fumbling for my phone. My stomach dropped when I noticed he was standing just a few yards to my right, shouting. I wanted to run onto the road away from his house, but fast-moving traffic caused me to hesitate. In the chaos of my mind, it didn't occur to me to flag someone down. I turned back and bolted toward his truck, hoping he'd see how scared I was and back down. "Get inside the goddamn house, Kathryn!" I dug through my purse, desperately searching for my phone. I shifted from foot to foot as he approached. The blisters on my heel tore my flesh, now raw and exposed. "Get in the house now!" "No!" I imagined his neighbors watching TV, bolting to their windows as they heard the yells. I looked desperately across the street at the jogging trail next to the protected green space. "Please, God," I prayed, "let someone look over." I knew if I stayed outside, I had a fighting chance. If I entered his house, I worried I might not make it out. I'd never seen anyone this unhinged before. I frantically fumbled with my phone, my hands trembling. I began to dial 911. Todd grabbed my hair and yanked wildly. "You're not leaving." I screamed. He snatched the phone. With my long hair tangled in his knuckles, he pulled me toward his house. My scalp was on fire. My arms flailed, desperate to grab hold of anything I could. My nails clawed into his arms. I lost my balance, my heels dragging through the gravel as I tried to get my feet back under me. Nothing was in reach. I finally found solid ground and regained my footing. I had one hand wrapped around his arm, and with the other I pulled back my fist and brought it down on his head as hard as I could. We both stumbled, and I fell to the ground. In a chaotic blur, Todd let go of my hair but managed to get my cell phone. "You bitch!" He threw my phone as I scrambled to get up. He brought his palm to his head, where my punch had landed. Unwilling to back down, I got to my feet and threw my fist as hard as I could a second time, striking him in the face. Shocked, he bent over with his head in his hands. Todd slowly lifted his gaze, his eyes ablaze with rage. A trickle of blood ran from his nose where my fist had connected. I realized the gravity of what I'd done. He started toward me again, his movements deliberate and threatening. Panic surged through my veins. I turned and ran. My feet slipped in the loose gravel, tearing the blisters on the back of my heels. By fighting back, I was afraid I'd only provoked him further.